client and you and the risk management process, how are you going to manage it in case of you notice there's some risk or hazard in the activity, in the cost effect, in the time effect, and also quality effect. How are you going to modify and change to improve the processes? All right. So today we will talk about that. And so far I sent to all of you the assignment. So far have not, some of you had done, some of you had not done. Please continue doing this and send to me. I will review it. All right. Okay. So today we will talk about risk management process. Okay. Risk and the client. All right. So when you do a project as a contractor or subcontractor, all right, what is the risk that you're going to involve with the client? Or what is the likelihood of this risk to happen in a construction site, right? In a project management site, in terms of maybe IT project or any other project that your company involved in, all right? So the risk and the client, they say less information that's about to give given situation or future event, the greater the associated uncertainty and consequently the greater the risk amount involved, right? So in a proper construction project or any project that you do, all right, as a contractor, before you tender the job, when the tender document you have received from your client, okay, as a subcontractor or main con, you have to know what is the situation, what are the job entail you to do, all right? On that aspect, then you can know whether your company are able to meet the requirement as stated by the client. Oh, this is what commonly practiced in most contracting job, all right? And also in terms of that, you must also know how much the budget is about, how big is the contracting amount, can you sustain the scope of work whereby involved in terms of time, cost, and the quality standard that your client want, are you able to meet? So all this process of understanding the risk or the hazard present within your capability, you must properly analyze it before you decide, okay, I will tender the job, right? Oh, okay. Uncertainty on any project will be greatest at the outset when there is little hard information about project requirement or the nature of the deliverer. Okay, so take note, okay, the more uncertainty, the higher uncertainty, okay, the risk will be higher for your company because you never do a deep analysis of the project content. Then because of your so-called you in need of the project, you need to pay out the worker, your engineer, your manager. For instance, you want to get a project, okay? Some company in Singapore, before the COVID-19, okay, some company, especially SME, they need to feed their workers, their engineer, all right? So they normally run out of project, they go and tender at a lower price, okay? And lower price within their mean, they can pay a little bit rather than pay a huge sum if they were to retain the worker without any project. So this type of doing for small medium price and medium enterprise may not be that attractive. All right. So they will lose money, but lose a little bit. But you must do your own calculation, okay, in terms of uncertainty of the project. So if you have good experience in a project, for example, like construction, okay, you could, by all means, you can tender, you can weigh the consequences of the risk is higher without project or risk is higher with project, and what sort of loss that you're going to have. Okay, all these things, a client and the contractor have to take a deep analysis of the consequences of taking a project. All right, take note. Okay, if we consider the risk exposure at the outside, some key questions have to be considered here. All right, one question is there a clearly defined demand for the project? Of course, when you tender a job, the tender document stipulate what you're supposed to do, what you are not supposed to do, what type of quality the client expected you to meet the demand. All right, and also in terms of time, in terms of manpower, etc., etc. Okay, so in this type of consideration, the exposure will be here is clearly define the project. Building meet the demand. Okay, when you do the project, can you meet the demand? Do you have the resources? Do you have the equipment? Right? So you must really consider properly, because end of the day, if you don't consider properly, you end up in the court, or the client can sue you, or a lot of things that can happen. All right. Okay. So can it be built within the cost limit to the required quality? Okay. And also within the time constraint, all right, to meet the demand. So as I say, last few lessons, all right. So when you get the project or you tender the project, okay, you must do a cost analysis and also the manpower and also the quality standard. All right. And the time is very important to create a master plan for the whole project. Then you break down into small pieces. As I tell you, it's a work breakdown structure. From there, you can do an analysis of the cost, of the time, the manpower, and the quality standard that the client want. Okay, so all these factors, you have to think about it, resolve it before you tender the project. Okay, so even you tender the project, you have to offer the price range that you want to tender. Suppose you tender your optimum cost and the return of, say, profitability of 10%. So you calculated initial, you tender, maybe you raise the profitability to 15%. And as time go by, the client may call you, okay, we want you to do the job. Can you reduce the price? So you have to sacrifice the profitability, maybe reduce to 12% or 10%. So all these sort of things, you must create a leverage for your own company so that you can get a project, but as the management demand, the expectation, okay, your objective are met. Okay, risk and client investment in capital building project. The client is an all-embracing term in construction, can include anything from multinational organization, government, and speculative developer and private individual. All right. So there are company in multinational that they want to build the building for their own use. For example, a factory. All right. Many government building in Singapore, they already develop for their own use, or they rent from people, from the big real estate company. For example, like this private individual and speculative developer. Okay. Speculative is basically to develop the place to make money for their own pocket. All right. So take note. So you have possibility of meeting this type of client. in your tendering process. Okay. One thing they have common though is that they pay for, and in most circumstances use the
Right hand
building
side corner.
for a specific commercial purpose. Right. There are many so-called construction of commercial, can be private individual for condominiums for people to stay, etc. So there are various type of demand in this type of building and the requirement of this building. Okay, essentially you have to meet the quality standard like engineering design, right, of the building that require under the law, all right, and also under the client expectation of the quality that they want, all right. So as a project manager or as a engineer, you must assess all these things to help your company to come to a decision whether you want to tender the job or not. Okay. Okay, investment in new adapted or building and facility to house some process or activity will add value to the organization. Definitely, all right. Normally, like today, yesterday news, they say that JCube, they want to build a 40-story building, including commercial. That means it's a mixed development building. All right. So these are the new building that they want to upgrade, to improve, so that they can have a constant money coming in. Because from now it's about 6 floor, if I'm not wrong. They built the 40 floor. So that means to say the 34-story will be housing unit for individual family. So that amount of money going to generate to add value to the organization is tremendous, right? Suppose that you want to tender this job. So what should you do? How should you do? And when do you want to do it? And the resources, whether it's available or not. So in building or facility, they do it for a purpose, not for show only. It's for a purpose. Eventually, it's about profitability of the new building. Okay. Since risk is inherent in all investment decision, an early question is whether constructing new building represents the best use of fund out of investment open to client, all right, investment opportunity. So depend on each building requirement, okay, whether you want to extend to, let's say, for example, the JCube, they want to extend to 40 floor. So the approval must be done first. That means to say the government building control authority approve the design of it, then they can consider building a 40-story building, all right? So in that aspect, okay, this is open to the client. The client can decide whether to upgrade further or just stick to their original plan of building 40-story. Or you can, with the added 40-story, how about you do a so-called cater for 1 floor for leisure activity, for example, right? So all these things will be client decision, it's not yours, right? End of the day, as a contractor, you just wait for the client to issue out the tender document. You take a look at it, and your group take a look at it and decide, is it profitable to tender the job? Okay. In commissioning a building, a client is committing a substantial amount of capital that can be invested in some non-construction venture that may provide higher return or lower return. Okay, depend on client. Okay, certain client, they may say build additional tennis court or swimming pool or exercise room for customer, and it may want to build another story for eatery. All right, all these things depend on the client whether they have the resources or not. Okay, not as a contractor who tender the job, there's no concern of you. But once they decided to build additional, there will be more money inflow for your contractor company, your SME company. But whether you can handle or not, that is another question, which is need to consider before you decided that okay, additional job you will take. Or some company they always have the impression that this client will I take the whole building construction and they add additional, I have the resources to take. But actually they don't have, they just commit because end of the day they want to have a bigger chunk of the contract. So end up they are losing money. So as a group, as a company, as a contractor, you must do a careful analysis of this additional scope, whether can substantiate your resources of manpower, time, cost. Okay, and whether you have any other existing project going on, you don't overstretch your manpower. Okay, you overstretch your manpower, the whole organization or all the whole management system or project management will cause an upset. Then your company will lose money. Okay. Okay, risk and client investment in capital project. Various investment opportunity will be categorized by varying degree and associate return. Okay. So you have your financial manager, your project director or project manager to analyze additional work for your current project. Is it worthwhile taking or not? So this one, we call it opportunity cost, or another word of use as in economics, they call it comparative advantage. When you do the project, you do additional cost, that means your manpower is already there. You make use of the manpower to do the project. All right. So this is depend on the company decision, on the contractor decision, not the client decision, whether to tender or not to tender. So you can see that opportunity is a lot. Once you get a project like this JCube example, you sure to have additional variances or sure to have additional work beside the construction of the whole building. All right. So you have many things. If the contractor will tender the job, get the job, I think for the next 2 years, they will be very busy doing the project. And in return, as you are a subcontractor of the contractor, then you may end up get more jobs from the main con. All right. So the greater the risk involved, the greater the return. All right. So depend on your company risk appetite. What sort of risk appetite you want? Is it a very conservative type? Is it a very high risk type or medium risk? It's up to your company, your CEO decision to make that type of commitment and tender. Okay? Take note, huh? Okay, risk and client investment in a capital building project. Property as an investment is exposing the client to risk. Okay, since it does not provide guaranteed return, unlike some other form of investment. Okay, we talk about building condominium, private houses, you want to sell, that also depend on the market demand. So the owner of that property, they have to consider very deeply is in terms of market demand, in terms of the population, right? How many people working and their income status. If their income is too low, they can't afford to buy the condominium, then the whole building will be maybe only 50%, 30% owned by the private individual. So that will not generate an income for the property company. So you have to do a proper assessment, right? Whether this building is worthwhile expanding. Like for example, JCube, they expand to 40-story building. I think the property company more or less have evaluated the potential return and the risk factor maybe is very conservative. That's why they go ahead with the building and seek the government license to build increase the story to 40 building, 40 story. Okay. Property is not a liquid, it's not liquid. In that transaction, take long time to complete, of course. Right. So you don't have ready ready cash. When you market a product, a property, it take maybe 1 year or 16 months, 18 months, right? Or maybe 2 years or 3 years. Depend on the locality, depend on the ease of transportation, okay? Depend on the building itself, whether you build a house that majority of the people like it or not. Okay. Okay. So you can see that property owner, they take a risk because they have to come up with the capital to build the house, the flat or whatever you call it, commercial building, and initial capital outlay is a lot of money. It could be millions. So you have to pay with this. You borrow from bank, you have to pay the interest, etc., etc. So a risk factor is very high, this one, right? But you have to analyze the market demand in that aspect. So like today, you can see that a lot of construction activity has started because after COVID-19, the market is sort of stabilized, and in fact, the demand have increased. If you look at the newspaper, all right, the price of the private house, okay, ever since the COVID rule have been relaxed, there is a demand for all these things. So a lot of investors come in, the property owner, or they have a land they want to develop into condominium or private houses, for example, bungalow, semi-D, etc., etc. Right. So the objective is to make money. If they are not interested in making money, then don't invest. So this is the way that in Singapore, in everywhere in the world, same. Okay. So risk again, come to this capital building project again. Pre-decision to build will include some investment and development appraisal. Of course, you have to engage. You are not expert in property development, then you engage those experts like a developer, a consultant, all these things to do an analysis of the demand in future based on the past, present, and you can roughly predict, okay, not 100% accuracy, you can predict that the demand will be there. In Singapore, more or less, the demand is there if the economic situation have been improving and improving every year, all right? So depend on the country's business situation and depend on the people, all right? Those rich people, like for example, China, Indonesia, they come to Singapore, they want to buy property, they want to own the property, which is now currently is happening. So there will be a lot of opportunity to build this type of houses, okay, for this client. All right. So you can see that that's why a lot of property now, they are thinking of building up more, okay, to compete with other countries like Malaysia. Okay. So at this stage, the client is striving to determine whether project provides satisfactory return commensurate with level of associated risks, okay, with the project, right? So the return calculation, or rather explanation, tomorrow we will continue with this subject, all right? Today we talk about the general practice of risk for a project. Okay. Okay. What is it make most building investment good? So as I told you already, you note down this question. Can you prepare at home? Then you send a thing. Later I will give you the email. Send to me. Then I will vet through. All right, I'll give you certain mark. Okay. So a client approach to evaluating risk, three aspects of it. For example, for a perspective of any reasonably sized client organization in construction, there are three risk aspects of strategic project level that should be reviewed, all right, when the project commences. Okay. So this section or unit discusses three main aspects with reference to research carried out by Australian, and this is one of the typical example by Australian company, all right, in Australia. So their policy may not be the same, but somehow or other it equate to Singapore standard also. Okay, so the three aspects, as you know, in project management, all the company, whether it's small or medium or big company, they always consider the time, cost, and quality objective. And this is very important because if you decide the standard that you want, the objective that you want, you must work toward that objective to create or to develop the sort of confidence in your client. So in future, there will be repeat project for you if the client is a very big client. Okay. So the three aspects, again, they will say time, cost, and objective. So very important for any project management, for any manufacturing company also like that. Okay, be it construction, be it chemical plant, be it shipbuilding industry, the TCQ is very important. End of the day, if you cannot meet this TCQ, you're basically, your company will go down the drain. Okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, if you are running a company, you help the company run the company to make sure that they meet the objective so that your job is secure. Okay, what the impact to the client organization is in failing to meet this objective. Okay, what the impact to the client organization is in failing this objective. Okay, so the impact is very great. Okay, Singapore before the COVID start, a lot of SME or even the major company, they pull out, they hand over to the government or to the client. And that impact will cause both party legal issue. Both party will be in a loss of money. Okay. Third is people going to be unemployed because of these cases. All right. On this, we can say it's a force majeure. But based on this situation, does a company prepare in terms of risk management to handle this case? After the COVID-19 over, a lot of companies happily tender the job, everything. What happened? What happened? Okay, if another COVID come in, I tell you, various companies going to suffer, right? So as a management or the top executive people or the senior manager, they have to think about all these things. So when as a client organization, you award the tender, you must check your contractor, subcontractor, their background in terms of cost, in terms of effectiveness and efficiency of their worker. How good is the skill? All right. Okay. The riskiness of a project itself, okay, the risk profile of the building. All right. So you can see that the impact to the client organization is the impact will be very great. For example, just now I say again, building, etc. Costs will be run out, and the building cannot complete on time, etc. Okay. Okay. Establishing time, cost, and quality objective. All right. Please continue. Okay. So as it means that establishing of TCQ objective become increasingly unsound and unclear, the risk rating for the project is increases. Right, in Singapore standard, okay, everything so-called that you do in project, based on my experience, okay, any company who tender the job, whether SME or me or main contractor, okay, they definitely will do a cost analysis, a time and quality standard that the owner want it. Okay, normally it's been aided by a project management consultant. They will do all this analysis, then they come out a appropriate time schedule, a cost, and also the quality standard. Most of the time, the quality standard is based on the international design standard, right? Or something even better, okay? So for cost and time, okay, this engagement of consultant in project management, they have a vast years of experience. They have all the database in their company. They can establish the standard that is appropriate to both parties, right? To the client and to the contractor. So they can provide the risk rating for the project, right? So a company do not, okay, tender a job where you don't have the knowledge. The risk of failure is very, very great. All right, this is what I encountered maybe 20 years ago, where our project management does not so well known or knowledgeable. I've encountered clients who just want to tender the job, but they never think about the consequences if the project delay, right? So normally I help them, assist them when they get the project. I try my very best, because I was a project manager there. I will try my best to help them to reduce the severity to as low as I can, right? Okay. So notice how all criteria is a level of information available which determine the risk involved. So the criteria is very important. That means to say your company, the client company objectives must be clear. Okay, in terms of time, like you build a house, you build a pipeline that is about 2 kilometers long. How much time? What are the process that will involve? So all these things, the consultant that is engaged by the client normally is this way. The consultant will provide all the information available to make sure the risk is minimum. All right. So this is very important because if the client don't know all these things, you just throw the tender, and now everybody suffer. right? We don't want this thing to happen, especially in Singapore, because the thing you delay, the thing that you suffer, the money is very huge, and you will end up seek for bankruptcy protection. All right, take note. Which is I see in during the COVID-19 time, a lot of companies close shop because of this. They never prepare for this COVID-19. Okay, we have one SARS issue before the COVID, but people take things for granted. This thing will not happen again, and it happened again. Okay, we will never know. All right, although now Singapore is quite comfortable, but you have to build in this type of risk factor to do your project. All right, project we have inbuilt contingency, a form of RM, are the risky, less risky. Those with higher risk indicate more unknown and unknown. Okay, so you can see that if you follow in the workplace safety and health, why accident happen? Because there is no risk management considered, and the risk management that they create, it doesn't apply to the real work. So does in building. When you want to build a condominium or any other building, your inbuilt contingency, that means your contingency plan must be in place. Okay, that's why in Singapore, or rather in the world, you look at banking process, there is always a vice president of risk management department. Why? Because the bank loan money to people, and they need to do an analysis of this person. What is the risk appetite of this person? How much can he pay? Why not? Why can't he pay? And the reason, all these things. So this department will do the risk management on whichever client they are given to do. Same as construction industry. All right. So the building contingency, for example, one regulation they talk about. Last time we build building just for the sake of building. But now government say, okay, you have a carbon neutral, you must have sustainability, you must think about biodiversity. So all these factors add into the building to cause the project cost to increase, the time to increase, in terms of quality standard also increase, because after this, the building done up or halfway through, you have to subject to in Singapore what we call green mark audit. And this green mark audit is a very so-called lengthy process. So if you don't understand this, you build the building, then later they find that it's not sustainability, does not meet the power consumption, then the company will be in deep shit. Okay? So bear in mind that contingency is a must for every industry, not only construction. Right. Last time I run the chemical plant. We also talk about risk management. Okay. Hello. Can you remain quiet? Hello. Hello. Okay. So establishing time, cost, and quality. Here you can say here. All right. So the rating will be the 3 rating will rate as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The content of this depend on your company, your consultant. Okay. So someone in the background, please ask the party to keep quiet. Want to talk, you move out. Okay. Hello. Excuse me. So you can see that the criteria for rating 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So that's all written here very clearly. I don't want to explain that because it's all clearly stated. All right. So you must know how to do your risk management. For this case, is the they call it risk matrix. Okay, or the rating that you decided whether it's higher, conservative, or very low risk, which is number 1. Okay, so like for example, take a number 1 at quality. Quality requirements have been agreed and documented. Okay, that means to say both parties, when they do the job, the contractor tender the job, they know what is the quality standard of the client requirement. So once you know this as a subcontractor or contractor, you must develop the process, okay, in terms of quality standard, okay, in terms of documentation, okay, in terms of train people that are able to meet the quality standard. You can come up with all these things so that you can satisfy the quality standard, and the final conclusion of this construction will meet the requirement. Okay, but there's also a risk in terms of meeting the requirement. There's also a risk of manpower, raw material delay, and extend the time, etc., etc. Okay. Right. The question, I will try to redo it accordingly. After the lesson finish, tomorrow morning I will send to Misma, and Misma will send to you. All right. Okay. Aspect 2, consequences of failure to meet. All right. So you can see that the second main aspect is to assess the risk of to the client for not meeting the project objective. Okay. So what are the consequences to the client business operations should the project be delivered late or over budget? Okay. Which one is more important? Okay. In terms of in terms of budget, right? Maybe the contractor able to pay the extra because they knowing that this is their fault. Then they pay extra to get the job done. But if the whole building completion delay, that means what will happen? Because the purchaser of the flat or the condominium already signed the agreement that they will get the block or the building by this month, for example, but the project delayed by 6 months. So they have to compensate, okay, to the buyer of the flat. All right, that will be cost a lot of money. All right, so over budget, see, okay, you can pay, but the building is delivered. But if you talk about delivery late, then there will be a lot of complaint. Media also will come up with the news that this developer no good because the project cannot deliver on time, etc., etc. So as you can see in the newspaper, talk about government BTO because of COVID, a lot of project delay, and a lot of people complain, right? So that will incur in terms of reputation, in terms of more money spent to it. All right, but government building is okay. You complain also, you have to take the building. But private one is a different story altogether. All right, take note. The TCQ objective for any project are always intention, as they are competing with the finite resources and have to be prioritized according to the important to the client. Of course, right? As a contractor, when you do the project, you must understand the cost, the time, and the quality. If you can't understand this thing, then how are you going to prepare the resources? For example, manpower resources, material delivery, all right? So how are you going to deliver the product or the raw material to the site just in time to reduce the cost of storage, to reduce the cost of putting the place without any usage, and also will affect the payment, right? So take note of that, because this is very important, because end of the day, everybody have the same resources for the money. So how to use it, you must able to control, because end of the day you overuse, then you have a cash flow problem. End up you have a cash flow problem. You cannot pay your worker, engineer, project manager, then the company will be in a deep problem. Okay, take note of that. Oh. So an early purpose of value management is to help to determine the objective level, okay, and which are the low priority. So you have to do a careful time schedule analysis. For example, CPM, right? You have to determine which one the float system on the project and which one to do first, which one to do last. Okay, you come up with a schedule and your people must follow strictly to the schedule. Okay, in construction site, every time we're doing like that, so that we understand which one is a priority for today, tomorrow, the day after, or week by week, right? So every project we have done this value and management because we want to meet the client expectation, client objective, all right? As a project value increases, the risk of rating of project increase, since the project will represent larger portion of the client overall business. Definitely, right? So you can see that doing a project, the outcome will be the client expectation is very high. Okay. So the expectation doesn't meet their requirement, you will be sued or claimed under LD, liquidated damage, right? So you must be assured that once you take the project, all right, you must be able to meet the client overall objective. Okay. Okay, again, it can be seen from the table of rating, all right, of this project, of the project. For this aspect increases as the consequence of failure to meet the objective become more critical, of course. So how to rectify this type of delay or failure, all right? In normal practice is company, the client will negotiate with some variant cost paid to them, maybe 50-50 or 80-20 or the extra cost. And what they do is they will, in terms of manpower shortage, they go increase the manpower, increase the overtime. Of course, increase the worker overtime or the engineer overtime. You must meet the requirement of the Ministry of Manpower requirement, which is 72 hours per month, right? So all these things will take into play, and say material so-called never come or whatever, you pay advance, you find another source of seller to buy the material from them, they can deliver on time. Okay, all these things a procurement manager will take into this consideration. The HR will work together with the procurement, right, on terms of manpower supply, etc. Right. This range from nuisance value to lowest value one through a complete failure of the business at the higher level. Right. So take note of this. Right. So in safety, we always emphasize on risk management. In construction, in project, we also emphasize greatly on risk management. Because if you can control the risk management, okay, the consequences of failure will be very less. I will not say zero. It will be very less. So there is, in any work you do, there is always a residual so-called risk. Okay, we cannot eliminate 100%. Okay. So this is another rating. Okay, you can put a value here and decide. All right. Take note. Okay, the question, as I say, I will rewrite again for you. Okay. So risk profile of a project. Okay, the second aspect of risk described above. Project at a global or strategic level that is considered the project and how we relate to the client because of operation in overall term. Okay. The third aspect of the risk is concerned with the detailed deliverer itself. So that means to say the risk characteristic of the project, and also have a checklist of factors that can be assessed overall. Okay, take for example this case, you go down to the lower level. Okay, the people you employ, do they have enough training? Do they have the knowledge to build what the company expected? Sorry, 1 minute. Hello. Yeah, it was inside the 3 o'clock. Now it's asking question why you never need all these people. Anyway, I continue. Yeah, I see you now. Okay, sorry. So the third aspect is concerned with the detail of delivery itself, assessing the risk characteristic. So example that you go down to the level of delivery, the person who do the work, right? So the assessment of this group of people that in your project, you must, with the HR participation, you can assess what you want for this type of skilled people. For example, worker level, engineer level, what type of standard they want, what type of standard do you want? And you make sure that your first step of risk, in terms of manpower, is very less. That means meet your requirement. Then you recruit them in, okay, they provide the training of the project, and the worker level go through the complete process of training, like for example, safety, core skill, etc., sent to them to building control academy to learn all the core skill and the safety requirement. So with all these factors, they put it together, you can present to the client, and the client will see, wow, you have done a good job, right? So from there, then you create a checklist to assess the riskiness of the construction project. That's all. Okay, construction project, in Singapore, they require a CONSA audit. If your project cost is over 30 million, every year you need a CONSA audit to make sure they are within quality standard, within safety standard. All right. So this is it, by and large, is a requirement for construction. But for $10 million above, you require to do an internal audit. All right. So you can be assured that all these things have been done in Singapore, the practice for construction industry. Okay. And coupled with that, if you look at other industry, they also can do this sort of job following ISO system. Okay. 14,000, 45,000, 9,000. If the company have a ISO integrated management system, where the 3 management system is in place, and outside auditor will come in and do the audit for them. Okay, and would recommend any measure to make sure that the company process system, people are all within the scope and duty of the project. All right. So riskier project will obviously have a greater number of driver, assets, and high rating. As I said, there is always a audit process going on in construction. You can never escape. All right. Even small company, they have a be safe. Be safe, we look at the safety aspect, but we also look at the whole process, how the thing do, whether it relate to the high accident rate. Okay, when you have accident rate, people get injured or die, the whole project will delay for 1 week, 2 weeks. That depend on the MOM requirement. So you can see job delay, that means schedule delay. Okay, why accident happen? because people don't have the skill, the knowledge against the customer or rather the contractor problem. So you can see that obviously it's going to affect your TCQ. Okay. Notice there are a mixture of strategic, project definition, tactical, and project delivery and organization and relationship issue. Of course, as a project manager, the project manager must have the knowledge about cultural diversity, man management, and communication skill to allow this project manager to manage the whole project where everybody at least be happy in the project work. All right, take note. Okay, risk profile, like you can see here. Okay, I don't want to read through. I just, you all look through, and if anything, next lesson, you come to me. Okay. There are so many things to describe. Next question, as I say, I will prepare for you. Okay. Okay, grouping of risk factor. Right. Strategic level is mostly is a top management issue. Okay, they will develop all these things. They will create some process to justify all this. Right. So take note of that. But your case, if you are talking about the project related, is site availability, project location, project surrounding, hazardous, availability, contractor, and uniqueness. So all these things will come into the project team to look at it. For example, like you look at the project location. The location of the project is Singapore is no problem because Singapore is nearby. But you work in project in Malaysia or Indonesia, that would be a problem in terms of transportation, in terms of way of transport, whether by land or by sea, etc., etc. All right. By Singapore, all the project is done by land, and the location is all nearby. But in terms of project location, you have to look at the surrounding area. All right. So your surrounding area is in the industrial park, like Tuas, that one no issue. But you build a condominium surrounding area. Currently, they have a HDB flat. People are staying. So what is your concern about this surrounding area? They will complain to MOM, complain to NEA, National Environment Agency, about noise, about mosquito breeding, about the transportation around the vicinity, all these things. So you have to think of way as a contractor, how to resolve this or how to minimize this sort of bad exposure to the public. Because once public complain, your whole project may stop for 3 days, 5 days, 4 days, and you have to do a risk assessment on, let's say, people complaining about the sound. Then you have to create the so-called the measurement of the location of the risk of the sound area. Then you identify and you have to think about remedy measure to reduce the noise to a level that is comfortable to the government. Right? So hazardous, another one. Okay. Under the hazardous Pollution Control Act, they stipulate what are hazardous you need to keep, and how much quantity you need to order, who is a signatory for this hazardous import, etc., etc. So you can see that doing a project is not as easy as what you think. All right. So think of this. Then in future you may have exposed to all this project work, and then you will come to realize a lot of things you need to consider. Let's say if you are recruited as a project engineer or manager. Okay, take note. Project management related. Talk about client experience, client relationship, and consultant selection. All right. So this one is up to the management to decide. All right. Okay, summary of risk factor. Taking the three main risk factor together, that means of establishing of TCQ objective and confident we have them, the consequences of not meeting them and risk characteristic of project itself, we can build a complete picture to rate the overall riskiness of the project. All right. So for my past experience, every time we build or modify certain process in the chemical plant, we always have this final touching thing about this risk. Okay, we construct additional equipment. What is the risk in terms of construction, in terms of installation, in terms of manpower usage? What sort of manpower do we have? They understand the safety, they understand the technical aspect, right? And in terms of cost, what is the cost and the time schedule, right? So every project we do a risk analysis of this. It's normal for people like me who work 30 over years in oil and gas petrochemical industry. All right, we are very clear about this. Even when the plant commissioning, the plant commission to start the operation, we also have a risk profile on how to commission, what are the risks, what are the logic system to safeguard the equipment in case the equipment go malfunction. Okay, all these things will be studied and put out a proposal, and the boss agree and brief the people, and eventually the risk will be near to zero. All right, only minor thing happen that can be rectified on the spot. Okay. At one extreme scenario of low risk, we will have a technically simple project or modest cost where the sound information underpin the estimate and forecast. We can expect to the client because that is minimum should they not make. All right. So we expect that. Okay, any client will have built in some contingency plan, but not to the extent of overall cost, but to the extent of certain cost, minimum cost that you create that contingency to meet with this unexpected risk that you may meet during the whole process of project. Okay, take note. Every company is like that. Like I do the project as a client, I always cater for 5% of the total project cost for the contingency plan. Let's say the cost is 1 million, I cater about 50,000 for the additional work. That's a minimum we are cater. Some big project, of course, the contingency plan will be 10%, 15%, depend on the difficulty of the project. So if you are experienced people, you know what to do and how to do and what is the contingency rate that you want to put in. Okay, so very important is the experience. Okay, most company they like to look at paper qualification, but experience do make account on your capability of the project, right? At the extreme of the high risk, we will have a difficulty and novel project which forecasts are based on poor, incomplete information and form a critical part of the client business, right? For example, like JCube. So I believe now JCube, they announced in the paper already, they're going to build 40 story. I believe that the contractor, they already selected. So now contractor have to do this so-called forecast. They have to come up with contingency plan in terms of material shortage, in terms of so-called the health risk like COVID-19. What happened during the halfway of project, the COVID-19 happened against Singapore, about a few thousand so-called sickness, how they are going to do the job, etc., etc. Right. So right now, I believe the client have instructed the contractor to do all this so-called risk probability forecast. Okay, and how to rectify it in case or mitigate it in case the risk happen. Okay, that is part and parcel of project work. Okay. Okay, self-assessment question. Category, okay. I will prepare this question, then you at home you think about it, how to do it, and come back to me. Okay. It is nothing much. Okay, keep on repeating. PRIVA standard, okay, we are Singapore. Okay. Consider attention to the front end number of phases before commitment to build, right? So like for example, Hedrod Airport, they do this way. Okay, at least halfway through the process before technical design underway. Terminology have a business orientation. Okay, all these things. So in a project work, you have many things to follow. Okay, Singapore is very common. They follow this PMI standard, Project Management Institute. Okay, the standard they have developed. And Singapore, if you are a licensed PMI, so-called project manager, want a good salary. That means to say you have every knowledge. And this PMI standard, it can be applied. It's a generic system. It can be applied to construction. It can be applied to computer. Can be applied to IT. All these things. Okay, it can apply to new manufacturing plant. So this is very common. Okay, you want to study PMI, it take a while. A lot of things to do. Okay, you have to take 100 questions. Okay, within half an hour, 1 hour. Okay, then you go for the course. The course is only cost $1. All right. I was once RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor, project manager, certified by UK. My membership fee is 1 month, 1 year, $1,000 British pound. I play for 6 months, 6 years. After that, I give up because I have no project. I retire, semi-retire. So I don't want to become a membership, right? So you go through RICS, PMI. Also, you have to write a paper, not 1 paper, 3 paper. Then you subject to professional interview by this RICS member from UK, from Hong Kong, fly down to Singapore to interview me. Right? So it's not an easy task, but it's doable. Okay. So you can see here the risk management plan. You talk about risk identification. That means to check your project scope, your project. You break down into small items. You analyze one by one, cost, time, etc. Okay. Then you do an analysis by using simulation or by using a so-called quantitative method using the risk metric as just now I show you. Okay. And you can, after you do an analysis, you know the risk level, how high is it, how low is it, then you come up with a mitigation measure. Okay, all these things consolidate together, and when you do the so-called the work, you throw out this risk management system to your employee, to the engineer, and brief the worker, the supervisor, safety officer, and you use this material as a reference to risk control, monitor the project progress. Okay? Okay, risk identification. Okay, so you need to do so-called, all the documents is there. Okay, all the tender document is there, drawing is there, everything is there. So normally, if you look at the construction site, when you do the brainstorming of risk identification, the people involved with project manager, project engineer, designer engineer, or civil engineer, okay, the QS, quantity surveyor, okay, and the construction project manager, okay, the construction project engineer, okay, and your subcontractor representative will be inside together, okay. Then you talk about this so-called risks involved when you carry out the job. Okay, the people that involved in this so-called committee or the risk management committee, risk identification, must have a certain standard. That means years of experience or academic qualification. Okay, must know the actual work. At least 70% know what is going on, how far the work to be done, and you have certain experience. You can share the experience with the technical people, right? So you group together, we discuss and come up with certain so-called measure to prevent incident or accident or time and the cost overrun. And finally, the quality. Okay. Brainstorming, okay. Sensitive, etc. This one I don't talk. I think it's quite easy. Okay, high degree of social interaction. So during the brainstorming, like this type of project, normally take about every week. Last time when I do a project of 50 US million, it take me about 6 months. Every week, one time, we brainstorm about the whole project. It's a very complex project. We talk about design. Okay, after design approved, we talk to the contractor how to build the thing. After talking to them, they understand how to install. Okay, the installation is very critical to us because you install wrongly, the whole project delay. And the people we want must have a certain experience, right? And after that will be project completion, right? So there are 4 stages that we are going to talk to the contractor, the main con, the subcon, etc. So you can see that the project manager must have a sort of knowledge, okay, the sort of a communication skill, so that he can communicate very clearly to all the people involved. Okay, so you can see here dominant member influence, status incongruities, avoidance of criticism. That is the most important one. You don't criticize. Come to the meeting, you contribute, whether it's stupid or good or bad, never mind. As a leader, you accept, right? You accept it, and everybody will be willing to contribute more. If you go and pin down one by one, eventually the meeting will be meaningless. Nobody will come, or if they come, they won't contribute. Okay, take note. This is more on communication. Okay. So as a manager, project manager, is not easy. You must know the essence of how to communicate, how to gather feedback, how to create that type of environment that you encourage contribution. Okay. Okay, you can see all these things. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. Risk register also we have. Okay, this one is risk management. Okay, the paper you fill up, who transfer whatever, reviews, and the ownership is who. Okay, this one is same as the safety or workplace safety and health. In government body, there is one, they call it risk management regulation. We follow exactly the same in construction, in facility, in manufacturing also. Okay, take note. Okay, these are all the things. I leave it to you. Risk project is mitigated in a number of ways. Can be reduced probability, reduce impact, eliminate, and absorb and transfer. All right. So depend on what type of process you are in, you can use this R2E to reduce whatever probability of risk is there. All right. So we don't eliminate, we can shift the operation to another area. Okay, you don't do in a construction site because that will create an impact on the people movement, etc. So you can shift to other, then later you transport it here and install. So depend on what actually you want. Okay, whether it can improve the quality, whether it can improve the time and cost. Right. So this is all depend on the project manager decision. Okay. So give you example, elimination. All right. You can do offsite as I told you. Okay. Reduce probability, financial loss, etc. You have to prevent all this sort of thing. Okay. Response, failure of plant, equipment, and project standby. All right. Flood, fire, contingency planning. So this is very important. In Singapore, the evacuation planning is one of the key important factors that is controlled, regulated by Singapore Civil Defence Force. All right. So in the construction site, you must have an emergency or evacuation response plan for your people working in construction site. Okay. This response plan will mitigate people injury, fire, or equipment breakdown or equipment damage, explode. All these things will be written in this evacuation plan. Okay. Okay, guys.
Yes, sir.
So, what make the building good? That means to say you are the contractor, you build the building, okay, you hand over, and the client will comment, oh, you build a good building. The essential of a good building is what? What are the things that you think is a good building? For example, you build your client a condominium or rather a bungalow. Then the client come in to stay, they move in, wow, your building is very good, all these things, wow, trouble-free, all this sort of thing. So the criteria for making a building good, all right, first thing is up to the designer. The first thing is aesthetic of the building. That means to say, when you stand outside the building, you look at the building, you feel very good. That means aesthetic in terms of vegetation, in terms of design. The design is very peculiar. Nowhere you can find in Singapore. This is a unique one. That will create an impression of you as a contractor that you can do this style of thing. Even though the design is a lot of difficulty, you can design or you can construct it to the expectation of the architect. Right? One thing. Second thing is the defect. Okay? Defect liability in that building after construction finish, you hand over, or rather go through this TOP inspection, all this thing. You don't have very much defect. That means to say your defect liability is very, very low. That means your construction activity is very good, meet the quality standard, meet the design standard, meet the so-called the time schedule, etc. All right. So that means defect liability, instead of other building, after building they hand over, they have 100 items. But here you build already only 10 items. So it's very good. Right. So another thing is, when you build already, what are the things that look good is your reputation. Okay. You as a subcon, if you build a good building and the client is happy about it, or no defect, etc., then you get a tap on the shoulder in future. The client will still engage you. And that means when you talk about re-engaging you, there will be income for you. And another thing is, if you build according to the specification and the building is as designed, no defect, no changes, that means to say you are able to follow instruction, you are able to meet the design expectation, right? So everybody will be happy in terms of the customer. Customer will buy the condominium, come in, they say the delivery in September, they will ship in September, no defect. And they will ship in for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, there's no building defect, there's no water leakage, etc., etc. So it's perfect, right? So these are all the criteria the client will look at it to make sure that the building you build, all right, have no defect And this also validated by the government agency when they do the TOP, right? Temporary occupation permit. When they do the checking, and it commented by the inspector. All right. So with all this in mind, that means as a contractor, you do a good job. Okay, and you will be recognized in Singapore market. Truly, if you are a good contractor, everybody will know. Oh, this contractor, I know. That contractor are lousy. Okay, so take note of this because it's your responsibility. If you are a subcon or contractor, you have to do this job. Okay, in project management, okay, like in this paper we talk about risk and how to mitigate the risk, minimize the risk before actually the building built. So you don't build already, then the risk factor come in and a lot of problem. That is not the way. Okay, you must, before you build, you must think about it, how to resolve in case this happen, that happen. Okay, so this is the way to do things. Okay, when you do investment, you also do analysis, do this, do check before you throw in your money in the investment. Okay, the same. All right. Okay, so in that aspect, can I take a picture, final picture of all of you? Okay, show your face, please. Okay, thank you. So tomorrow, again, the paper, this paper I will give you until tomorrow. Tomorrow is a lesson 6. This 6 is the risk management. Oh, that one is a short video, or rather short slide. Okay. Okay, friend. Are you clear? Any question? Any question?
No.
No, no, okay. We can end the meeting. Okay. Good night. Good evening. Good morning. Yeah. So maybe tomorrow the lecturer, the school people will be here also. So please make yourself present. Okay. They have nothing to do. They always like to check. Oh. Okay. So if nothing, then thank you and see you tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. God, never wish me goodbye. I'll quietly go. Disappear. How can, man?
Bye, sir.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Bye, sir. Bye, sir.
Today very long paper. You all understand? No?